All right, guys. So today I'm going to walk you through my pull A workout as well as just give you some updates on what's been going on with me after the workout. So going into this workout, this is how it's set up, but I did make a couple substitutions that I have implemented into my training plan permanently. So I wanted to go over those before I go into the video, and then I'll make note of them within the training session as well. So this first exercise, I am doing a high-low plate-loaded pull down, and I have attached a D handle to it for a better grip, maintaining more of a neutral or even going into a supinated grip. I tend to get a better connection with my lats, being able to adduct my humerus a bit more. So I prefer that setup versus like using an overhand grip on this pull down as it's normally set up. Single arm cable row, I keep that neutral grip. T-bar row is pretty straightforward there. Semi-pronated pull down as well. That one I have switched to a hoist pull down. I don't really like a pronated lat pull down on a cable. I tend to catch my teres pretty easily, so using semi-pronated instead tends to be better for me. But I've really been liking the feel of this hoist because it does move with you a bit, so I get a little bit more stretch in that eccentric position. And then when I drive down, because it does lean back slightly, I feel like I'm in a better position to engage my lats with that machine. The reverse cable fly, I've actually switched out for a pronated high row. So you'll see that within the training session. The reverse cable fly is something that's been just bugging my right shoulder a bit. I've been having issues in, I believe, my infraspinatus. So having that like really extended arm position has been irritating it a bit because it's not as stable. So switching it to this high row has been great, and I get a little bit of trap work with that as well. Dumbbell curls, keeping those supinated throughout, and then single arm dumbbell preacher curls. Those are both kept the same. So those are the adjustments I've made for this workout. And now I'm going to walk you through it, kind of explain my setup and how I'm performing the exercises. All right, so leading into exercise one, I have that high-low pull down like I mentioned. I'm doing a couple warm-up sets leading into this. I get asked about warm-up sets a lot because I offer like a specific protocol on how to use warm-up sets, which Luke and I both use for programming. And with that protocol, the idea is that as you increase the weight leading into your top set, you're going to decrease the amount of reps that you're doing. So I'm only hitting this weight for a couple reps, like 6 to 8 here. Then I'm going to increase the weight a bit, hit a few reps there, and then jump into my top set. So I'm really not trying to fatigue on warm-up sets, but I am trying to do enough sets that I'm able to recruit the muscle fibers needed to lift the amount of weight that I need for my top set, which is a lot easier to predict how you're going to structure your warm-up sets once you know what your top set weight is going to be. So when you're first starting a program, you probably need a couple weeks to figure out, all right, what is my weight going to be to fall to failure within the assigned rep range? Okay, great. Now, how do I need to structure my warm up sets to lead into that appropriately? So I'm not doing, 5 warm up sets leading into this, but I am doing enough, and I am working up incrementally in a way that's going to allow me to just touch a weight really close to my top set without overly fatiguing on all my warm up sets. So in this exercise, my first warm-up set is with 1 plate, 45 pounds. My next warm-up set, typically with 2 plates, 90 pounds. My last warm-up set, I'll do with 2 plates and a 10, so 100 pounds per side. And then my working set is 115 a side. But this warm-up set of 100 pounds, I'm only doing like 2 or 3 reps there. I want to feel the movement. I want to be able to control that amount of weight with power, but I don't want to fatigue on that because I'm pretty close to my top weight now, and I need to save that for that ultimate set. Okay, so now I'm hitting the top set here on the right arm. One thing to note is I slid the handle up a little bit farther from this like breaking point in the handle, just because when I slide it all the way into this breaking point, I end up with my arm out from my side quite a bit, and I have to really lean out to align my lat to the weight. So I make sure that on this exercise, from the start, I line myself up where that handle is in line with my wrist, which is in line with my elbow, which is in line with my lat, slightly leaning into that side. That way I'm able to keep that humeral adduction throughout the movement. All right, so here I am doing my back down set. So I went from 115 a side back down to 100 per side to fit within that second rep range. Going all the way to failure here, as on every set. That is the ultimate goal. I've been lifting with Thomas Allen, and it's been really helpful to have that second person there to just help with that last forced rep, which I've found has really helped with my progression over the past couple weeks in this program. He was sick this day, so I had to go to failure on my own, but it was good to still see jumps in both weight and reps this day, even without having that spot. All right, leading into the second movement for the day, I have a one arm neutral cable row. So a couple notes here. I really like this setup because this is a dual pulley cable, so you're a little bit more aligned. Whereas when you're using a single pulley, I find that I like to be a little bit more centered on the seat, meaning that hip on the same side as my working arm is more central on the pad. That way I have alignment from the actual pulley to my side. Whereas this one, because there's two pulleys and they're spread apart, I'm a little bit more in line from the start. I'm still using that working side leg to anchor myself and then slightly leaning in that position to shorten the lat from the bottom. And then I am resting for a bit of time between arms because I've found that, especially pushing up in this program, noticing that if I'm not taking enough rest time between sides, it really is cutting into the amount of reps that I'm able to perform. So a common issue that I see on this exercise is people will tend to supinate through the movement, and it's not necessarily wrong to supinate, but if you're supinating in order to gain leverage by using your bicep, then I think it's important to keep in mind the purpose of the movement. If you find that you're bending your elbow more than 90 degrees, to the point where your hand is coming up above your elbow, you're likely pulling with your bicep. So if you're someone who tends to have like really naturally good arm development, or you tend to feel your biceps a lot on pulling movements, just take note of where your hand is ending up and the grip position that you tend to naturally resort to. If you are a bicep dominant lifter, sticking to a neutral grip is a good way to bias the lats a little bit more over the bicep, because as soon as you start moving into that supinated position, we tend to want to lift the hand to gain leverage with bicep involvement. All right, and now I'm moving into a T-bar row. Really like the setup of this machine, maintaining a pronated grip with high elbows for some rear delt and trap focus. This is a really weak movement for me. It's one that does not progress very often, and I tend to hit a sticking point when I try to fully hit that contracted position with the high elbows. So this is one I've been focusing on progressing the form with, not necessarily just the weight, because I find that there comes a point when I start to lose some range of motion in the reps. So instead of just adding weight when I hit the rep range, the next week I try to hit the rep range with more range of motion in the target muscles. So maybe those last couple reps that end up being a partial, trying to make those full reps. So just focusing on the quality of the exercise and your execution versus just increasing the weight, because that's the trap of the logbook. Now, moving into the hoist pull downs. So like I said, I like the position of this one, even though it is a pronated grip, because of the angle of the handles, because of the actual movement of the machine. I feel like I'm able to keep the tension in my lats. At a slight lean on the contracted position, whereas when I come forward, I get a little bit more stretch through that eccentric. I just really like the feel of the movement overall. Some people don't like hoist machines because they move with you. I don't think they should be your primary movements to overload, but I do like that it's a little bit of a different stimulus, and some of them have really good alignment and they just feel great. And I know we can't always train by feel, but I think that if you connect really well with an exercise, there can be value in keeping that in. This won't be my primary movement to overload the lats, but towards the end of this workout, it's a great movement to really work that stretch position and, for me, just continue to foster that mind-muscle connection with the lats. One thing to note is I keep just wider than a shoulder width grip here, so that at the bottom you see my arms are like 90-degree angle pretty much. My arms are pointed straight up at the ceiling, whereas when I tend to go a lot wider, I tend to have trouble stabilizing, and more narrow, you tend to pull with your biceps. So make sure that you have a grip width that makes sense for the muscle that you're trying to target. All right, and now I'm moving into my replacement for the reverse cable fly. This is the high row, which I'm doing with the cable setup, and I grabbed a mag bar, but it's a little bit too wide for me. Once I took the video, I could tell that I was not getting the rear delt recruitment that I needed. So I slid 2 D handles on it and took a semi-pronated grip here, kept that high drive. Having more of that 90-degree elbow angle at the fully contracted position, I can see a lot more rear delt recruitment on this setup. I'm driving high here in order to hit those rear delts as well as the upper traps. This is a tough movement, especially when the focus is in the rear delts. You want to make sure you're not shrugging up too much into the movement, but keep in mind that you will get some trap recruitment here. All right, so that concludes the back movements for the workout. Now I'm moving into biceps. So with biceps, I'm doing an alternating dumbbell curl while maintaining a supinated grip. This just keeps a little bit better alignment through the movement. Personally, I like either this supinated grip or rotating through it, where you have the neutral and you're rotating into supinated. Sometimes as I get closer to failure, I will go from these to the rotating movement, as I tend to have a little bit more strength in that position. But the main key is to make sure that you align everything really well, so you are pulling with your biceps, not using momentum, limiting the amount of like swinging at the bottom of the movement, and slightly leaning into the working side in order to create that alignment where your shoulder, elbow, wrist, floor, all in one line. All right, so finishing up this workout with a one-arm dumbbell preacher curl. I like the one-arm exercise following the bilateral curls, even though they're alternating, just because I can really focus on that working arm. Just making sure I don't curl to full lockout to the point where I would lose tension at the top because I would be perpendicular to the floor. And then just maintaining tension throughout that stretch position. These get difficult really quickly, so try not to overshoot how much weight you're using, and you do want to milk that stretch position, but not fully extend your elbow in the bottom of the movement. All right, so just finished a pull day at Gold's Gym. It was pretty good. I increased weights on almost every movement, which has been the case for every lift this week, which is really exciting. Okay, granted, I've only lifted twice compared to last week. So I ran my full split for the first time last week, which is an 9-day split. So I do 2 on, 1 off, and I have push, pull, rest, legs, pull, rest, push, pull, rest. So I've been through everything one time, and now I've been through the first push and pull day and went up on both workouts, which is really exciting. And there were some big jumps there, and I'm feeling really good and recovered. This week we kept food the same, with supplements being added in. Strength is supported, recovery seems pretty good, and my weight is already trending up, even though we didn't increase food, just with the addition of supplements. So we're just gonna hold steady with food, which is awesome, just because personally I like to keep my rate of gain pretty moderate. Part of that is mental, but also because if I'm already gaining, there's no need to push the variable of food up when we can kind of use that later to push up when my weight does finally plateau. So I'm excited to see what we'll have to do with that moving forward, and just excited to see how high we can push strength, because right now strength is the highest it's ever been. I'm more precise with tracking my logbook than I've been before, and I'm going to be really particular about how I progress the weights. So in the past, if I have been at the top of the assigned rep range, I would jump weights that next week. But now I'm going to exceed the rep range by 1 to 2 reps before jumping weight, which will give me a little bit more room to work, and hopefully it'll be a little bit easier on the joints, because that's an issue that I tend to run into. I don't call myself a particularly strong lifter compared to other people, which you really shouldn't compare, because it's all about progressive overload for your body. But I'm not letting that get to me in how I'm addressing my logbook this time. So I'm really excited to see what pushing up is going to look like now that we've gotten every other variable under control. A big issue this past week, although everything else has improved, including digestion, has been sleep. I had an old bed, borrowed, and it was killing my back. So as of last night, I now have a new bed. I got a Bear mattress, BEAR, and I'm really excited to see over the next few days how my data changes now that I have that on board, because I was noticing that as sleep was declining on my Oura Ring, I track it with that. As sleep was declining, my resting heart rate was consistently going up and my HRV was consistently going down, both indicators that recovery is sliding. Luckily, looking at the big picture, I was still progressing with weights, but we know that long term that's going to create problems, and regardless of what you do with food and drugs, if you're not getting good sleep, you're going to run yourself into the ground. So I'm really excited to get that on point and to keep on pushing up from there. So now I'm headed to Costco just to get some groceries and having my post-workout meal, which is 200 grams of rice and 4 ounces of, I'm doing cod right now. It's definitely not my favorite, but it goes down pretty easy. I'm not eating while driving and recording, just so you know. I will eat when I get there. But that's the plan. That's the update for the week, and I'm excited to continue to share the process with you.